Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have my reading wrap up for the month of June for you. And it's a little bit early because, well, today is the 26th when I'm filming this, and I just know I'm not going to finish any more books. I'm doing a buddy read with Emily from Emily and Max, or her reading channel, Magida's Mama. Make sure to link her down below. This is my first buddy read, so that's pretty exciting. But we're spreading the book across 2 weeks, which means that I won't be finishing that book this week. Plus, I probably won't have enough time to finish another book in the meantime. So I decided to just do this today. And I thought I read more than what I actually did when I'm looking at my Goodreads now. But anyway, let's talk about the books that I did read. First book that I read was Happy Place by Emily Henry. I do like all of her books, and I saw this in stores. I didn't realize that she was releasing a new book. And I'm the type of person, like, because I have so many books still on my list, I sometimes don't allow myself basically to read the things that are just out now, because I don't know, there's still so much on my list that I don't want to add to it really. But I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna read this while it's new, while it's kind of the time to read it, although it's definitely a summer read, so I feel like maybe I was reading it a little bit too early. But anyway, this book is about Harriet and Win. They used to be together for a long time. People thought that they would get married, and then all of a sudden Win decided it was time to not be together anymore, but they end up in kind of the holiday home of one of their friends. They have a group of friends who they've been together with for like since college, uni, whatever that's called in the country that they live in, America, I'm pretty sure. And initially they decided that only Harriet would go and Win wouldn't go, but then Win shows up all of a sudden as well, because they realize there is a specific reason that they all need to be together in that house one last time, and they're trying to not tell their friends that they're not together anymore, and that causes loads of interesting situations. And Happy Place, the title, is kind of like Harriet, she lives through where we are now, so some of the chapters are like what's happening in real time, and some of it she goes back to her happy places, so we learn about her past and the things that she's been through, the times that she's had with Win as well, where she really felt like she was in a happy place, and she keeps reminding herself of all those happy times, and that's kind of like woven throughout the book as well in a really nice way. So I really liked reading this. I went through it fairly quickly, if I remember correctly. The start of this month seems so long ago for some reason. I did end up giving this book, yeah, as I expected, 4 stars. So I liked it. It's not a favorite, like it is still like kind of a typical summer read type thing, Emily Henry style. But I really enjoyed reading it, so 4 stars for me. Then I read a book on Kindle, and that book was What Alice Forgot by Liane Moriarty. Why is that so hard to pronounce? We all know her from Big Little Lies, Truly Madly Guilty, I believe. She's really good in writing stories with like the suspense built, that you don't really know what's gonna happen or why it's gonna happen. In this book, Alice hit her head and she forgot what happened for the last 10 years, I think. So she thinks she's still married to her husband, turns out she's not. She thinks she is about to have a baby, turns out she has 3 kids. And over time, apparently, you notice through the interactions that she's having with the people that live in the present, she's changed a lot, and she's trying to figure out like why did she become that person, how did all of that happen, and she feels like she is still the person from the past, which doesn't really which doesn't really match with how people perceive her at this point in time. So that's causing some interesting situations. The person that she turned into, she doesn't really know how much she likes that person. So it's interesting to read all of that. And the interesting thing about this book as well is like we see Alice's story kind of just through Alice's eyes, but then there is also the grandma. You have to read the book to know why I'm giving it air quotes. that has a blog, and on the blog she's writing about certain things that are happening in her life, but also to Alice. So you get the grandma's perspective, even though you don't hear her say these things out loud to Alice. And then her sister is dealing with her own things, and she's kind of writing a diary for her psychiatrist. And you also see her diary entries. So you've got 3 different perspectives and 3 different people that are going through their own things throughout the story, which is done really nicely, because it's not like one chapter is this person, another chapter is that person, but most of it is through Alice's eyes, and then you sometimes get her sister's diary entries or her grandma's blog post that you're reading, which give it a nice little twist in the story. So yeah, so far I've always liked Liane Moriarty's books. So I've been kind of reading like authors that I know I like: Emily Henry, Liane Moriarty. Such a hard name to pronounce. So this one I gave 4 stars as well. And then lastly, I tried a new author. I read this book, Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Fearies. As I said, I think last month, I'm trying to find like spring reads. I'm trying to figure out like what is my type of spring read, and fairies and nature and those type of things to me feel like spring. So I thought, okay, let's try this book. It's by Heather Fawcett. Fawcett? Yeah. And I don't think, I didn't really like the writing style of this. I don't know what it was specifically. It's mostly like, I want to say diary entries. It's not really a diary. Emily Wilde is a scholar, a PhD in folklore, in fairies, basically. And she's doing research in Scotland, if I'm pronouncing that right. And she is trying to learn more about the folk, as they call them, that live there. There's all these different types of species, and she writes her notes down and everything that she's experiencing to then reference it for her book that she's writing and the papers that she's writing. So that's kind of what we follow along with. So it's her take on everything that's going on and everything that's happening to her. Interesting thing is that when I think of a fairy, I think of like Tinkerbell type fairies. The fairies in this book are not per se the nicest type of fairies. So that was interesting. But Emily, she's not very good with like actual human beings, but she has learned the way of the folk or the fairies through and through. So she really knows how to interact with them and how to motivate them to do certain things or not do certain things. So this is interesting to read, like how she is able to interact with the fairies, even though they have a very specific like way of working with them, whereas she's not able to do that with real people. But of course, over time, things evolve. But no spoilers yet. There is a lot of like footnotes and things as well, because it's clearly written from a PhD type of person. And I don't know, like the writing style, she uses more like difficult words, and it's maybe like, I just started reading Anne of Green Gables. That's the buddy read that I'm doing with Emily at the moment. And like that classic writing style that book has, of course, although that's more like children's literature. Actually, Emily Wilde, not Emily Wilde, that's the main character, Heather Fawcett, also does write children's literature. But still there's difficult words in this book, at least. Like, I know I'm not a native speaker, but to me, if I have difficulties reading this, then I would say a child would probably have difficulties with those words as well. It's written in kind of like a classical style for some reason. So it reads a bit slowly through, like halfway through, I was kind of like, okay, this is a series. And so far, I don't really know whether I want to continue this series because it's just not really grabbing me. But then towards the end, things starts happening with the town and the folk that are surrounding the town, and Emily gets completely wrapped up in everything because for research sake she wants to do all the things and interact and try to save people and try to save folk and all those type of things, not because she specifically cares about the people, at least that's what she says, but because for research sake it's really interesting to see what happens if you do XYZ. So then it starts to pick up a little bit more, and it picked up just enough for me to be like, okay, I'm kind of curious what the second book is like. Maybe it will be a bit more eventful, because I guess the first part here was like build up to the story and to the world and all those type of things. So I might continue this series even though I've got plenty of other books to read. Yeah, so not as much of a spring book as I thought it would be, because it mainly plays in winter as well. The fairy word was mainly what pulled me in at this point in the year, and maybe I should have read it in wintertime. Anyway, that's that one. I gave it 3 stars. I liked it more towards the end, as I said, but at the start it was kind of like I didn't really know where it was going, and it was a bit long-winded and stuff. But yeah, those are the only books that I read this month, and I really felt like I was reading more, but also I've been traveling a fair bit for work during the month. And well, then we're always busy with people and things. I'm a little bit like Emily, I don't always want to be around people, but yeah, I didn't get as much time to read. That's basically what I'm trying to get at. I'm still, according to my Goodreads, 1 book ahead of my goal for the year, so that is good. I've read 25 books so far this year, and my goal is 50, so we're doing well there. And yeah, that is it for today. Let me know if you guys read any of these books. Again, if you have any spring read recommendations that I can put in my list for next year, since we're in summer right now, let me know. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.